Welcome back to Objective 2 of Chapter 4 in our 3B1 series. In this objective, we'll describe the designs of integral furnace sidewall and header arrangements, including tube and tie, tangent tube, and membrane. So a water wall is simply a wall of tubes that lines the furnace inside of a large water tube boiler. And this is done for a variety of reasons. Most notably, of course, to reduce refractory requirements, which will reduce the mass, also the maintenance required by the boiler, as well as increase the heat transfer surface area, which increases the rating and the overall efficiency of the boiler itself. Now, these tubes can be connected together in different ways, and we'll take a look at these here, as there are 4 different styles of water walls that we'll take a look at. Now, depending upon the type of water tube boiler will depend upon what's either in front of or behind our water walls. If you take a look in figure 4 of your textbook, we can see here that behind our water wall we have refractory and insulation layers followed up by the outer casing of a boiler. Well, we looked at a boiler earlier in chapter 2 that actually had refractory on the front of our water tubes. And this, of course, was for our refuse boiler to protect the tubes against very corrosive gases. So it very much depends upon the style and the utilization of the boiler. Now, why do we go for these membrane walls or these water walls in modern boilers? Well, first of all, as I mentioned earlier, refractory maintenance is virtually eliminated. There still will be a little bit of refractory around the burner throat, but that's really about it. Secondly, of course, by having membrane walls that are gas tight, we can make our furnace enclosure completely gas tight, which means we can pressurize it. And again, that depends upon the type of draft of our boiler, whether it be forced draft, balanced draft, or induced draft. Remember, forced draft furnaces are positive pressure. The next one is that the corrosion of the furnace wall is eliminated. Corrosion of the furnace wall is going to be by condensation typically of the gases inside of the furnace, and also dew point corrosion here is going to be eliminated as well by having it completely gas tight, as we'll have no air escaping into or out of our furnace itself. Fifth, tube replacement is simplified because tubes can be replaced by a technique called circumferential welding, and this means that entire sections of water walls do not need to be replaced in one go. 6. Greater inherent strength to resist furnace puffs. A furnace puff is like a mini furnace explosion, and we'll be discussing these later in this textbook. Now, these furnaces, of course, will be designed to withstand that, as they'll be connected at the corners and tied together with something called truss rods and stays. The 7th, less external support is required. Typically, you're only going to get your buck stays and trusses around the outside of the boiler, which will give it lateral support and also allow for expansion. Because these boilers are top supported mostly, they're going to expand downwards in terms of their linear expansion. Number 8 is the big one. Refractory and brick is extremely heavy, so by doing away with the refractory and replacing it with water tubes, it reduces the overall mass of the boiler, which means we can have bigger boilers. And then finally, number 9, reduced expansion stresses, as we're now stressing metal, not stressing brick. And again, metal stretches more than you think in terms of as it goes up from its standard ambient temperature up to its operating temperature. As an example, a standard sort of radiant style boiler that's used in a large thermal plant, and these boilers, we're talking like 62 meters tall, very, very large boilers. They can expand as much as 18 inches in a downward direction, which is a hell of an amount when we're talking about a big lump of metal. So quite amazing things here regarding expansion. But of course, allowance has to be provided for it. Okay then, so let's talk about these different types of sidewall arrangements. Now, in general, of course, the water wall is simply going to increase the heat transfer surface area of our boiler. Now, depending upon the style of our water wall, it may or may not be gas tight. It is a myth that all water walls are gas tight. That's not the case, as we'll see in this objective. One of them is, the others aren't, and we need to be able to distinguish between the types and the styles. Now, as you can see here with this simple diagram on screen illustrating the idea of a water wall, we have a series of tubes that are connected together in between. We have our hot gases on one side, on the furnace side, and then behind our tubes, we have basically our insulation or our refractory layers that will eventually go out to the outside boiler casing. So, in terms of the water wall idea, you can see here on the bottom right, there are photographs here of water wall sections. And these will be installed in panels and then circumferentially welded into headers, top and bottom, as there'll be a header at the top and a header at the bottom that's going to connect these things together. You can also see the water walls can be made in different styles. The one pictured in the photograph top left there would be going around the burners, and you can see the tubes have been molded to go around them. Again, massively increasing our heat transfer surface area. If we ever use the term membrane with regards to a water wall, then the membrane style wall, that is gas tight. And again, that would have to be used for a pressurized furnace. So let's look at our four types of walls then. The first one is one that's often overlooked when thinking about water walls, and this is referred to as a screen tube and brick wall. And this is the one that figure 4 refers to upon page 5 of your textbook. Now in this example, we can see that the tubes are fairly widely spaced apart. So obviously, as there are no connections in between the tubes, this is not going to be gas tight on the actual water wall. What will be gas tight, however, providing our gas tight seal, is the outer casing. So you can see that on the diagram that's behind our layer of refractory and also our layers of block insulation. A typical example for this style of wall we saw in an earlier chapter, chapter 2, when we looked at a fluidized bed combustion boiler looking at the bubble caps on the furnace floor. This had this particular style of water tube around the outside of the furnace. The next one is our welded fin tube water wall, and this is the one that's often referred to as a membrane wall. And remember, a membrane wall simply means that this wall of water tubes is gas tight. And you can see that with the diagram here in figure 5 of your textbook. The tubes are connected together by these welded fins that connect both tubes. And this is what gives us our membrane as it forms a gas tight seal. So in this example, there is no requirement for a gas tight outer wall like there was on the last one, because the water wall itself is gas tight. It's then just simply backed up by layers of insulation and then our metal rib casing on the outside. You can also see how the water wall is attached to that outer metal casing via these pin studs that hold it all together. And these will form a complete continuous surface throughout the furnace, completely encompassing it, ensuring it's gas tight and its ability to become pressurized without leaking to atmosphere, or with the atmosphere leaking in, depending upon the draft. The next one is our fully studded water wall. Fully studded water walls can also be membrane walls as well, meaning they are gas tight. These ones are a little bit different though. We can see here in this example that this membrane water wall has studs or pins on the actual tubes. And we saw this in a refuse style boiler for mass burning or RDF burning back in chapter 2. And this was a refractory layer coated on the outside of Inconel tubes to protect the tubes from corrosive gases of the refuse being burned. So that was a typical example there. And the refractory that we used in that example was a silicon carbide refractory. So this fully studded just refers to the pin studs over those tubes that the refractory can be attached to. The next one is a tangent tube water wall. This water wall is not gas tight. The tubes are merely butted up together tangentially. And so this requires an additional casing that's going to be airtight or gas tight. The location of that casing with regards to tangent tube water walls is that it will be an inner casing, as we can see here from the diagram. So you've got to remember whether it's an inner casing, an outer casing, or a membrane wall. In this example, it's an inner casing. You can also see then on the outside, we have our layers of insulation and also then finally our outer casing also. Then the last one to mention here is our flat stud tube wall. Don't confuse this one with the fully studded wall. Different application. The fully studded one had pins or studs on the tubes for the attachment of refractory. The flat stub tube wall refers to how the tubes are connected. And you can see with the diagram here in figure 8 that these tubes are more widely spaced apart and the studs are in between them. This wall is also not gas tight. So this one requires another inner gas seal or inner casing to provide a gas seal for this furnace. And again, in this sort of cross-section or cutaway diagram, we can see here some additional information regarding our refractory, our insulation, the lagging on the outside, and then also this particular diagram has the buckstay there as well. The buckstay, of course, is just to provide lateral support to the boiler where it's tied in at the corners, and then it will also provide some lateral expansion provision also. So in summary, here are our 4 different types of water wall. We've got our screen tube and wall, our welded fin, otherwise known as a membrane, which could also be fully studded membrane, and then we have our tangent tube. So you need to know, as I said earlier, whether it's an inside, outside casing, or it's a membrane. So our screen tube and wall used an outside casing, the welded fin, otherwise known as a membrane wall, or a fully studded membrane wall. This has the wall itself as the gas seal. The flat stud, this uses an inner casing, and the tangent tube, it uses an inner casing. Okay, so that's it for objective 2. Fairly straightforward. Just really take a good look at these diagrams and see what their layers of construction are and also where the seal is. So let's take a look at some simple questions here to see the kinds of things you may get asked here from objective 2. So first, all water wall tube arrangements are gas tight. Is that true or is that false? Well, I would hope that you would agree that that is a false statement because it was only the membrane walls that were gas tight. The other ones were not. They required an additional casing to make it gas tight, and that's not the water wall. Next one. Which of the following water wall tube arrangements are gas tight? We've got tangent tube, welded fin, flat stud, and screen tube and brick wall. Well, again, this is where you really need to know which one's which. Bit of a nasty question, this one, but hopefully you agree that on that list, there is only one there that is gas tight, and that's the welded fin. And again, the welded fin can also be referred to as a membrane wall, and we can also get the idea of a fully studded membrane wall. The other ones here, tangent tube, flat stud, screen tube, and brick wall, they are not gas tight. Where was the tangent tube wall? Well, that one had an inner casing. What about the flat stud? That had an inner casing. And what about the screen tube and brick wall? That was an outer casing. Next question. The screen tube and brick wall tube arrangement is made gas tight by the, well, we just talked about it, didn't we? It was the outer casing providing the provision for the gas tight seal. These are really questions asking you to see if you know what these diagrams look like. And that's where we really have to take a good look at the diagrams in the textbook. Also, when you move on and do an exam like 2A3, for example, you're often asked to sketch these kind of diagrams. So the more you look at them at 3rd class, the easier that will be when you progress on to your 2nd. Next, which of the following water wall arrangements may be referred to as membrane? Is that screen tube and brick, welded fin, flat stud, or tangent tube? Well, the membrane wall is gas tight, and the only one of our list there that's gas tight is the welded fin. It's the only one. Next one. In water wall construction, what stops the water tubes from overheating? Bit of a 4th class question, this one. Well, basically, what's going to stop the water tubes from overheating is the flow of the water through the tube. If we have a loose circulation, then the water won't be keeping the tubes cool. The tube will then overheat and can eventually lead to a tube rupture. This is why it's important that we don't get scale deposition, for example, on the water side of our boiler, as it will impede our heat transfer. So the answer to this question is simply the water that's flowing through them is what keeps our water tubes cool. And there we go. There is another quick objective there for objective 2, looking at the 4 different styles there of water wall and whether or not they are gas tight, and if they're not, what casing is used to make them gas tight. So have a good review of that one, and then when you're ready, let's go over and take a look at a much bigger objective here in objective 3, where we'll start talking about the different types of superheaters and their characteristics. So see you back for that one soon. Take care.